Section 7.3 Scientific Notation, Day 2. Essential question. How do you multiply and divide numbers written in scientific notation? Multiply. Write your answer in scientific notation. So now you can see we have two different numbers written in scientific notation right next to each other. So that's why the problem tells us that we are going to multiply. So what I'm going to multiply is the first number in each parenthesis. So 2.5 times 3. Now remember, for multiplication, you don't have to have decimals lined up. The key for this lesson is you cannot use a calculator. You won't be able to use a calculator for scientific notation for the MCAs, so we don't want you to use a calculator for the lesson. 5 times 3 is 15. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Now if you remember from previous years, the way you figure out where to put the decimal is the decimal is between 2 and 5 and then after the 3. So we have one number that's located to the right of the decimal, so I go one number over. So I have 7.5 times 10. And now with multiplication, I'm going to add my exponents. So 3 and 4, I'm going to add. So I'll get 7.5 times 10 to the 7. The last question I have to ask myself is this number in scientific notation? Remember, for a number to be in scientific notation, it has to be 1 through 10, or 9.9. Yes, 7.5 is between 1 and 10. So I'm going to circle that, and that is my answer. I would have an additional step if I had a number that wasn't between 1 and 10. All right, we're going to do the same thing on this one. So I'm going to start by taking my 3.7 and my 2 and multiplying. So 3.7 times 2. 7 times 2 is 14. Carry the 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And I have one number to the right of the decimal, so I'll go one number over from the right. So I've got 7.4 times 10, and then I have to add my exponents. When I'm multiplying, I add the exponents. So 5 plus 2, so 7.4 times 10 to the 7 is my answer. 7.4 times 10 to the 7. And again, I'm done because 7.4 is in between 1 and 10. Now I'm going to multiply 3.5 by 7. So 3.5 times 7. 5 times 7 is 35. 3 times 7 is 21. 21 plus 3 is 24. I have just one number to the right of the decimal, so I'll go 1 over. 24.5 times 10, and then again I add my exponents. Negative 3 plus 5 gives me 24.5 times 10 to the second. Now on this one, you'll notice that 24.5 is not between 1 and 10. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my 24.5 and put it in standard form. Putting it in standard form means I need to look at this exponent, which is a 2. 2 is positive, so that means my number is going to get bigger. Bigger means I move my decimal to the right. So we're going to move it 1, 2 spots to the right, and I fill in a 0. Now, I'm not quite done yet because they want our answer in scientific notation. So now I'm going to take 2,450 and put it in scientific notation. So my decimal's right here at the end. I'm going to move it 1, 2, 3 spots. So I have 2.45. 2.45 is in between 1 and 10. And I moved my decimal 1, 2, 3 spots. 2,450 is a big number, so I know my exponent is positive. Look at how much our answer changed from what we originally had to what we ended up with. So right away after we multiplied, we had 24.5 times 10 squared. Then I took that number, put it in standard form, took that number and put it back in scientific notation, and I ended up with 2.45 times 10 to the third. So two very different numbers. All right, now we're going to go to dividing. Again, we cannot use a calculator, so I'm going to have to divide 6.6 by 2. So remember, your numerator, your nerd, likes to stay in the house and read. They're going to go inside. The denominator, your dog, has to stay outside. That's what I always use to help me remember what goes inside the lines, what goes outside. 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 times 3 is 6. Bring that down. 6 minus 6 is 0. Bring down that 6. 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 minus 6 is 0. The only thing I'm missing is I got to bring up my decimal, so I end up with 3.3. Now for dividing, we don't multiply our exponents, we subtract them. So I have 5 and negative 2, so I'm going to do 5 minus, and then I have a negative 2. So this is actually going to be a superplus problem. So I've got 3.3 times 10 to the 7th for my answer. And 3.3 is between 1 and 10, so I know that is correct. It is between 1 and 10, so it's correct. I don't have to keep going. All right, 7.5 divided by 2.5. So first of all, I'm going to divide these. My numerator, the nerd, goes inside the house. My denominator, the dog, goes outside the house. Now I don't want to deal with any decimals outside of my house, my dog. I don't want my denominator to have a decimal. So to get rid of this decimal, I'm going to move it over one spot. So now I have the number 25. But if I move that one over, I have to move this one over. So now I have to ask myself, how many times does 25 go into 75? Well, you can think about money. 25 is a quarter, 75 is 3 quarters. So if I have 25 cents, I need 3 quarters, 3 of those to make 75. So there's our decimal 3. And remember, we moved our decimal here, so now it's right here. So 3.0 or 3 times 10. And then I'm going to subtract my exponents. So 8 minus 4, which is 2. 3 times 10, or sorry, not 2, I was dividing. 8 minus 4 is 4. That is my answer because 3 is in between 1 and 10. All right, now I've got 3.45 to divide by 2.3. So 3.45, my numerator, my nerd, goes inside the house. My denominator, the dog, goes outside the house. I don't want that 2.3 to be a decimal, so I move it over 1. So then I move it over 1. And if it helps you, you can put your decimal right up at the top right away so you don't forget where it goes. 23 can go into 34 once. 34 minus 23 is 11. Carry down the 5. Then I've got to figure out how many times can 23 go into 115. Well, I'm not sure. I'm going to take a guess and say 4. We'll see if we're right. Nope, it's not 4. 92 is too small. Let's try 5. Yep, there we go, 115. So it can go in 5 times. 23 times 5 is 115, so I end up with 0. So I've got 1.5 times 10, and I'm going to take my exponents, 8 and 2, and subtract them. So I've got 1.5 times 10 to the 6th. This answer is in between 1 and 10, so I know it is done. Summary. Your homework on this lesson is page 419, numbers 11 through 12, 37 through 42, and 48 through 50.